Hello, everyone. Welcome to this evening's 2-for-1 special. As president of the New York School of Interior Design, I am proud to be introducing two leaders in the field of interior design who both have direct connections to the college. Nina Farmer is an alumna of the college, while Alexa Hampton sits on our Board of Trustees and has an honorary doctorate from us. Alexa Hampton took the design baton from her celebrated father, Mark Hampton, in 1998, but today she has certainly earned her own stripes and then some. She has remained steadfast to her father's legacy of elegant, practical, classically based interiors for modern living and extended its global reach. Recently published by Clarkson Potter, Alexa Hampton, Design, Style, and Influence, her newest book, takes you on a journey through her life's work, her beautifully appointed pre-war apartment on 59th Street. I haven't got to the bottom of this yet. She shares the design and fashion tastemakers who inspired her work, acknowledging some of the big movements, auctions, and people that rocked the world of design and made an indelible mark on her. A personal history of interior design, the book is a love letter to an iconic home, and she is still with us today. Like Alexa, Nina's design philosophy draws on history. A Bostonian, she has reimagined century-old homes to more modern dwellings. Drawing inspiration from fashion, art, history, and travel, she creates experiences that celebrate the classical past, yet simultaneously live squarely and stylishly in the present. Nina's work has been well published, and she was listed in Best of Boston by Boston Magazine and received the more coveted NYSID Rising Star Award at our 2021 gala. In her book, Timeless by Design, recently published by Rizzoli, Nina talks about what it means to create a sense of place and collect art. The book showcases projects including a stone-walled 1930s colonial in Westport, Connecticut, a mid-century inspired beach bungalow on Martha's Vineyard, and Farmer's own 1850s federal-style brownstone in Boston's Beacon Hill. Without further ado, let me hand over the proverbial microphone to Alexa and Nina. It's all yours. Enjoy.
To be speaking to a NYSID Rising Star, what an incredible, how is it like to be back here?
It's amazing to be back here. I was just saying I haven't been back since I graduated, and my friend Annie is here from design school, which is so fun to see her face back here together. But it's kind of surreal. I never really thought, I'd be back here talking about a book and a decade's worth of work, and it's thrilling. It's thrilling, yeah. It's a great thing to be back and meet students that are here and excited about the work they're doing. So it's been a good path.
Well, I have some deeply profound questions. So pardon me for referring to them. I don't want to, I have no memory anymore. COVID just wiped it out. So I use props. But timelessness is the key of your design. Can you speak to how this core value informs, what does timelessness mean in these interiors?
So for me, I guess it's just avoiding and getting stuck in trends too much, right? I'd like the projects to be where you walk in and experience it, and it's not set in a perceived time that you can lay your finger on. In 10 years, it'll look great. In 20 years, it'll look great. And so that's sort of what I think about when I kind of think timeless. Is this going to really stand the test of time?
And when you're working with contemporary pieces or less historic pieces, what doesn't meet that?
It's measure? Really sort of, for me, falling into when you read a design magazine, it's the top 5 trends this year. It's avoiding anything that is on that list for me,
I use boucle.
But not anything. But the stuff that it's you just see. You're just time and time. I mean, it's all that.
How many round sofas can there be?
Right. So it's okay, you gotta juggle that a little bit.
Do you have it, or do you have it?
I think she has it.
It is a beautiful book, and I'm proud of it. Okay, you mentioned using history as a guide, which we just discussed. And when it came to your first big project, your own house in Boston, you were inspired by history. And what history were you inspired by?
Well, so I live in an 1850s brownstone in Beacon Hill.
And 1840s, by the way, is my happiest.
Is it?
decade.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so
good
it's
to
50
know.
years.
Okay, so I didn't realize before, I mean, I always knew that I liked, history and really, architecture that was steeped in tradition, but until I did my own project and experience what the bones of that look like and the scale and all of the fun stuff that comes with it, I didn't realize I truly love the way, there's just something comfortable about the proportions and, the amount of time dedicated to the molding profiles and just all the things that nowadays people kind of pass over or maybe overlook. It already came with a lot of that stuff. So I just fell in love with that and then ended up having my next 5 projects were all historic homes. So that was sort of an unexpected
many of
gift.
them houses?
Yes. Yeah. Combination of brownstones and then houses in the outside the city.
Because
So.
that is such a good fortune about Boston.
Yes.
Because when you talk about the lack of architectural flourishes, that's so often
Right.
the result of an apartment building.
Totally. Yeah. And I kind of moved to Boston a little bit against my will. I was living here and my husband's job switched to there. And it really was sort of like New York was my city. That was where I was going to stay. And moving there kind of opened up this whole sort of historic path. I didn't think I would go on that path. And I don't know if I would have unless I got exposed to that. So
That is so great. Where is this?
this is in Westport, Connecticut, which is actually where I grew up. And my client's actually here as well from that house, which is so sweet of her. But it was a fabulous project, actually right near the high school that I went to. This beautiful stone house from the 1920s. And we did this whole sort of gut renovation and addition. But it gave that house came with a lot that it was like a story it already had that it was kind of trying to tell. So it was a really fun one to go down that path.
This shows how you're able to straddle in a graceful, that sounds terrible, but historic and
in the best kind of way.
Straddle.
Yes.
A delightful straddle.
Love that.
Because it's clean, it's fresh, it's youthful, but it also, you can feel that it's...
Yeah, and I like kind of to bridge that, to have, the historic piece speak, but then to twist it a little bit.
Yeah,
so
not dowdy.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody goes, you know what I'm going to do in this project?
I'm going to go dowdy.
I'm going to go dowdy. Okay, well, just looking at you, you love layering color and pattern, and you're a master at it. Do you have, is one of them first?
Yes.
Is the palette first, or is the pattern
I always start building rooms from the ground up. So pick the floor material and then the rug first, and then everything else.
You're one of those.
I'm one of those, yes. And it's really telling, kind of, you're going to go, with an antique with a lot of pattern, then you might layer on in a different way, a little more solid. If you're going, kind of a lot of the rugs we do are custom, and we can, pare back the design a little bit and then put it into the fabric. So,
does that mean the budget, but a lot of the budget goes,
yes,
not a lot, but
that is,
that it is a prized point.
I start my projects and I give clients a budget, and the rug budget usually looks a little outsized, but it really makes the room, I think.
Yeah.
So you gotta,
better to have that conversation up front.
Yes, right. Yes.
Don't spring it on them later.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about you and travel. So obviously, as a lover of history, as situating houses in a time frame and loving many time frames, travel is obviously something you adore.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
It's been a big part of, living. I love Boston as a city. I don't get a lot of my inspiration from the city. I find I really get it from travel experiences. So, I love places that have a bit of a patina. I just was in Paris. That kind of meets the bill. I went to school in New Orleans.
Yeah,
I hear it's
lovely.
pretty great. It's pretty great. So yeah, just places that kind of show you their, time worn, so they don't really hide that behind. So I feel like that's sort of where I get my best inspiration, and then also places that really love handicrafts, so like Morocco and India and places like that are really.
Do you do a lot of bespoke artisan work?
I do, yeah, I try to, at least in every project, kind of put one thing.
Do you draw it, or you go to the artisan and kind of
Kind of a combo. It's usually something that I'll either like pull directly from a travel photo I've seen, or something, I'll meet an artisan and just be like, I need it. This is so great. Where can I got to use this somewhere. And that kind of sparks the whole conversation,
And we have to keep them all in business.
Yeah. I mean, it's so,
if they go, that's
right.
it.
Then we have nothing left. So I love to kind of
pottery
find
barn
them
for you
and then, right. No, and then kind of try to keep it moving with like as much as I can give that way. I'll pass along.
So if you're doing Moroccan, are you going to Morocco, or are you going to Portugal and meeting with them
Yeah.
and then shipping it over?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, a lot over like FaceTime and Zoom once I've kind of you got to like meet in person and make the connection and then.
And so you say to your clients, I must go to Morocco.
Yes, exactly. That's always part of the deal.
Do you travel with any of your homeowners?
I don't. No, I haven't done that yet. No.
I feel like that's
Have
very
you?
old school.
Do you do that?
I don't do that.
Yeah.
And I fear doing
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
But my father did that a lot.
Yeah,
I
did
was
he?
like,
Yeah, I guess.
I can't think of anything worse. I love my clients, but it feels like that's a lot.
That is a lot. And I think you really need to have like your path set. You don't want to just go like wander.
Yeah,
you
they have to be old friends.
Yes.
Old friends.
Exactly. And then it's totally.
Yeah.
No, but that's why not? If it works for them. Then, your dad clearly loved it.
I do think of it as a throwback. I think people used to do that a lot.
Yeah, go find. Well, it was also like the internet wasn't, right? Like that wasn't where we were finding all the stuff. So you had to go out and find it.
He didn't even have a cell phone.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
He was dead before those became common.
Yeah. Well, good for him. I feel like those were better days.
Good for you, you dying guy. I was very excited to talk to you about Kips Bay because, like you, been to quite a few.
Yeah.
How old were you for your first Kips Bay?
So my parents have been taking me to Kips Bay, honestly, probably since elementary school. It's been like, just that annual, this is what's happening. Like, is it May? We're going. And it really has been, and I wasn't even involved in design when I started. I was pre-med undergrad. It took me a while to get to this path.
Oh, I don't remember that. I must have known that, but that is
well, it's not that interesting. But, it took me, I was in graduate school for something else before this, public health. No, that fact about me isn't that interesting. Medicine itself is. But, So then, I was in public health school and then realized, like, this is so not who I am. But it was all those years of going to places like Kips Bay and, like, knowing that that's a passion. And I always thought interior design was a passion and not really a career path. And so
that's something that everybody says.
Yeah, which I think by the
time
you get here and you're a graduate student, you realize like, no, that's a real.
Well, NYSID has changed it.
Yes, exactly.
Which is one of
which is so great.
Yeah, it's a real job now, people.
Right. A job you can have and love, and you don't have to, question should I have done something that's a passion, right? So.
What did your house look like growing up?
My parents built it in the woods in Connecticut, like everything I don't want to live in, basically now, like a contemporary in the woods in Connecticut, which I loved growing up in, but it's just not my sensibility.
Oh, so you're in a big rebellion.
Yeah, maybe that's where I'm.
And when they would take you to Kips Bay, were they enjoying the less modern rooms?
No, my mom's very eclectic, so she's an artist and loves lots of different things. So we would all vote on our favorite rooms and usually agree. So we were in the same. Art? She's paint. She did theater costumes. She's kind of like a catch-all everything.
And do you paint?
No.
Well, it's in you
wish
somewhere.
I wish I did.
You're too busy.
No, that's not talent I have.
Okay, English, countryside home would be your dream project. Is this going to be for you? If we're going to sit here and
ideally,
manifest.
yes. That would be.
And is it Cotswolds? Is it?
I think Cotswolds is where I would go. Yeah. It's funny because I'm now doing a project in the countryside about an hour outside of Boston, and they're kind of channeling that. So I'm going in June and kind of doing a little, not with them, but peruse around.
No,
just getting, I need to get it, the energy by myself.
Nourish
yes,
yourself.
Exactly.
What do your parents think of how you are living?
Oh, they were like, you were never going to be, like they were the arts family all the time. My dad's a doctor too, but struggling, like wishes he was a architect. So they were like, how come it took you so long to find, like this was always your path?
Really?
Yeah. Very opposite of a lot of families.
So that phone call when you're like, hey, medicine?
Yeah, no. My mom was like, thank God. Like it's, it's
great.
time that you like went down. Yeah.
I feel like your work highlights really sculptural pieces, and that I can see that you are art inspired.
Yeah.
And that you give enough air to the pieces so it kind of elevates each piece that I'm looking at.
Yeah. I love to find really interesting vintage furniture and kind of pair it with something that twists it a little bit, or color palette that might be, a little bit outside of the box. So you just kind of, it's a little bit off, but the pieces really shine.
Would you ever do product?
Maybe. Are you interested?
I mean, if I were a furniture maker, yes. Because I think you've got some really incredible shapes and unique pieces. I hope you're taking dimensions before you release them into the world.
Yeah. No, I think that could be a fun path to go down.
Even if it were small batch.
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
Like,
I have thought of maybe
thing.
like rugs. I'm really interested in rugs, so that could be. This is one I custom designed based on a Tibetan tiger rug.
Love it.
So yeah, that could be a fun path.
I was going to ask you. Where do you get the majority of your rugs?
So I use Stephen King in Boston, who's connected with Beauvais, and they like source all the vintage stuff that I find is really
Stephen King.
sourced through them. I know.
He does rugs.
You're
He's
not going to forget the name. He's amazing. No, they're a great source, and they'll like just scour the world, fly in stuff, and then I make all my stuff with them. So
that's fantastic.
Mostly.
I need that rug.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Actually.
Yeah.
It also is like, the one with the 3 balls? I can't remember what that pattern is
yeah,
called, but I love
Chichamani.
it. That.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a great one too. Yeah, that one I custom made too. Yeah.
All right. Manhattan, the apartment you're working on right now. Tell me about it.
Yes. So I'm actually working on 2 apartments, one on Central Park West and one on 5th, like right across the park from each other, which is great. Both in Art Deco buildings. The one on 5th is with Tom Kligerman's office, who is absolutely amazing,
out, there he is.
the best in the business. And it's been so fun. We're channeling a lot of details from Villanecki for it, so hopefully, fingers crossed, terrazzo floors. Still waiting on approval from the
and the tile.
Yeah, all that. Which has been great. And the other one's in the Majestic across the way, and super fun as well. It's both repeat clients, so
that's
fun
the best.
projects. Yeah, because you could just like hit the ground running. And
so let's talk about how you hit the ground running.
Yeah.
When you graduated, how long were you here before you moved to Boston?
I was here for 2 years. I worked for an architect doing restaurant design, so totally commercial stuff, which was great. Yeah, it was really great experience. I kind of honed all my CAD skills and all the stuff. And then I moved to Boston, worked for a great firm there for 2 years, and then I went off on my own.
When you went off, I'm so fascinated by how people start their own businesses, because I didn't truly start my own business. Like and I've talked to Dennis Scully about this, who's in the audience. Like, I never had to go buy paper clips.
Right.
Or order stationery. It just was
Lucky
there.
You. Yeah.
So what were some of the major, what do you recall? Of
So the first
stuff?
thing that I did was my own house, which kind of was again, so fortuitous in that it kind of set me on that historic path. And then, people saw what I could do for brownstones and sort of the projects kind of rolled from there. I did get it published immediately. And that was a really great kind of, because it was before Instagram and all that
I was
stuff.
about to say, was
and
Instagram
you
on
had
it?
to no, so you had to really kind of do your own. You know, I was just like sending it out, and so it was published in House Beautiful, which was so great, and I just felt like I was really on the right journey.
And did the phone start ringing?
It was pretty well. So it was of course all my friends at the time. Then like they're all buying their houses, and so I knew that I had a business when like friends of friends were like my clients. You know, then you're on the second tier. Yeah, exactly.
What do you think is? I mean, that's still. I'm like, wow, that's still crazy. You built your house, you published it. Did you have an office at that time outside of the house?
No.
And when did that happen?
I still don't have an office outside my house.
Oh,
it's
so
in my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you still like your house? Because I now want to set fire to my house.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
I mean, we just opened an office again, so now we're out. But like,
so now,
ugh.
Yeah. No, I do like my house.
Even though my book is all about my house. It's great. Buy it. It's a great book. Beautiful apartment. But
then you need to change.
You need to change. So how long is your house continue looking? So
I
wait, when did
know.
you move in?
I moved in, it's been like 12, 13 years now. So, wow.
So it's coming.
Yeah, the change. I know, I'm going to start hating it soon, I guess.
How long before it absolutely was finished? Or is it absolutely finished?
It's just, it's on its like decline, you know.
Yeah.
It's been done for a while,
But, so you completed it.
I completed, we moved out I had bought the first floor when I moved up, thought I was flipping it for like, quick, I'm going to get back to New York.
Because that's so easy.
And and then, of course, all that work, then I ripped it right out because we bought the floor below and then moved out and kind of combined the two. So it was, a little backwards the way our thinking.
I mean, you're going to fall out with it, not out of love. You can love it forever, but like, what do you think is going to be the first thing that changes?
In the house?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Do you have kids?
I do. I have 2 kids.
How old are they?
Yeah, 16 and 13. So their rooms have already gone down, that path. Yeah.
You can't walk into my daughter's room. Since it was published, it's declined.
It's, yeah.
Like almost immediately
No, that's, you got to do
repulsive.
it before, all the stuff starts.
Before tape gets put on your beautiful paint job.
Right. That'll happen for sure. No, the kids kind of, they come in and life happens, but I still do like it. I think the first thing I do is get something else outside the house. That's
That is my goal too.
Yeah.
Country house.
Yeah.
So what do your kids' rooms look like? I am totally against children having anything to do with their.
Oh yeah.
It's
so,
all like
mine were luckily too little, but still they change their mind every 5 minutes anyway. So
who cares what they think?
My girls originally shared a room, and I built a bunk bed for them, and it was like I was kind of channeling this sort of their rooms actually in the book, but green and yellow, this sort of like tree housey bunk beddy vibe for them, and now it's like it's totally a different scene. And then the playroom. My older daughter moved in there, so that's now her full-fledged room, and everything's a little.
That's a 16-year-old.
Yes.
She's going through her Greg Brady, Johnny Bravo phase.
Yes.
When he moved into his father's office
and
started a band.
Yeah.
Are they interested in design?
I don't know. My older one is very artistic. I want her. I'm that parent that I just think it's so fulfilling. A job in the arts. It's a little bit hard to know what the path looks like, but it's so fulfilling. So I do want her to do something down that road. I don't think it'll be interior design, but I could see like architecture or museum work, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
And the younger one?
Oh, the younger one, no. She's going to be like in finance, and she wants nothing to do with my.
Yes, I call one of my sons a douchey hedge fund.
Yeah, that's
and I'm counting on it.
One of them can make the money, and the other one kind of,
do they like the way the house looks?
It's funny. I never actually asked them, but I do think that they do. I do. Yeah. My younger one really wants to renovate her room, and I keep saying, maybe next year. Maybe I'm just waiting until she's ready to exactly.
All right. So do you have a 5-year plan?
No, I have no plan.
I have never had a 5-year plan, but I really want a 5-year plan. I also want to see what it looks like.
Right,
what
to have that.
Like success, riches,
Right.
fame, and dewy skin.
Totally. No, it's like in this business, you kind of wait for the great projects to roll in, and that's the plan.
No, for sure.
You can't really plan them, you know. No, I wish I had a plan.
I feel like we should have plans.
Should we? Okay. Well, share yours when you know it.
David leave? I feel like that should be
a class. A class here.
If I went onto GP, will it? If I say, what does a 5-year plan look like? Will it?
It'll
Yeah.
It won't. I don't like it.
I know. Quit. Lose the weight. Okay. All right. So since you don't have a plan, what are our dreams for the next 10 years?
Yeah. What
We'll
are my
keep it
dreams?
small.
I mean, my personal dream is to buy a house outside of the country and renovate it and.
So you're already
start a path.
2 houses of dreams.
Yeah. So
The
that's
country house
I
and
know. I'm kind of between Tangier, Paris, Cotswolds. I got a lot of stuff happening.
So many things.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Right. I'm just waiting.
My husband and I play Where Are We Going to Live?
Yeah. What's on your list?
Milan.
Okay. Love that.
So, Villanecchi.
Yeah.
I feel like it will probably be too small.
Oh, okay.
Is
So
that
you're
a
dreaming
small
big.
town?
Yeah.
No, I'm not dreaming big. I just think it's like I'm a New York
You
City
need a
girl.
big,
And Paris.
Yeah.
And I forgot.
Yeah.
Don't even know where I'm going to
Yeah,
live.
just where the plan takes you.
Totally forgot. Tell me about the process of writing a book.
So it was a wonderful process.
Did you approach them?
Actually, my editor is here. No, I didn't. It wasn't even really on my to-do list, honestly. I was just like, you just work so hard at getting the work out that for me, I was just like really in all of that.
And by the way, I think that's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
Like, of course, it's lovely.
Yeah. No,
But
it was, but
sometimes
then,
you just can't.
right. Exactly. That's kind of, I was just really in the work. And then, no, it kind of, came to me that this was a possibility. And then once it did, I was like, oh, that actually, like the idea of looking back on your work and thinking about like the through lines and what it was about, you don't really sit there and analyze, like do the projects and you kind of move on. So it was really fun to like dive in and kind of understand like the genesis of all of it. I felt like it was just such a great experience. I loved it all.
How long did it take you to write?
I would say it was probably a year in the writing phase.
That's
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
And
then
photography.
So I didn't really shoot anything. So everything I have in there was stuff I had. Yeah.
Oh, but you had
Like I had already shot all the projects, but I didn't sort of do a whole reshoot just
right.
Yeah.
No, that's a disaster.
That's a whole
financially, and also like you can't just gain
go
access
in and
to all those projects because
right.
you didn't do them all at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
When you go into somebody's house and you photograph it,
yeah.
How much do you change? Like
I really don't change a lot. I typically, honestly, it's more just like furniture orientation, so like all the legs aren't kind of, stuff. No, a lot of times the thing that I do think is probably the biggest change would be sometimes they just don't have art yet. And
so what do you do?
So I'll try to borrow.
And you drive in
I use my own. Some of my own isn't, yeah. So, because that makes such a difference. And people, and people get to it. It's just, they want to really be into it and passionate about it. And so they don't want to rush into the process. So that's the one thing I find.
And they don't mind you coming in and.
No.
Good.
Yeah.
Do they ever try and buy it?
Yes. A lot of times, yeah. It's been, or they just haven't known what to put in there. And then it's
they
like,
can't see it.
Yeah, well, that works. So let's take that, which is always the win-win because,
If you didn't like that art.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't like it a lot.
Exactly.
No, Bunny Williams always says that when she installs, she absolutely every box, every candle, everything
is.
And because then people can't part with it.
Right. Right.
But that's
well,
ballsy.
it is good to, I do like to do the accessories layer, at least in a,
Oh, well, for
you know,
photography. For
yeah, but just even for real life, because you don't want it to be like you pull out and then it really doesn't look, like all that stuff makes the difference.
Of course,
you know?
but sometimes there's spending fatigue.
Yeah, you got to bake that in. Just
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah. That's with the rug estimate. You
Yeah,
can't tell them
exactly.
how
Yeah,
much
yeah,
it's accessories.
totally.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, what is, when you looked at the through line of the book, what's your big takeaway?
Yeah, I guess so. My big takeaway, honestly, is sort of this love for history and channeling that into the work, whether it's in the envelope of the space, the pieces that make their way into it, you know, what it's given me as far as the starting point for projects. That's sort of my takeaway. My big takeaway was like, oh, this has really been a big piece of, and I wasn't even kind of thinking about what it is that I'm drawn to when I first see a project. And even if it doesn't come with any history, it's like trying to make a story for it so that you can kind of, you know, have a touchstone for what it wants to be.
So now when you start a project, you're
Yeah,
I know I've got to crack that.
Yeah, I got to figure that out. Otherwise, it just doesn't come as quick.
Has the business changed since you started?
Has the business changed? I think Instagram's changed things a lot. You know, I think that people know a lot more, or just a lot more savvy about what they're interested in or what they find. You know, so when I first started, I feel like we would come with all of the inspiration pictures, and now it's sort of like, you know, clients kind of have already done some of that digging because that's so accessible now.
And they also found you.
Yeah, right.
They have to
Which
be
a lot
familiar.
of times, yeah. Right. So I do think that's changed. I think, you know, sourcing has changed a bit. Like, First Dibs has been we use First Dibs all the time. I don't think that I don't know if they were in business when we first, but we didn't use them as much early on. You know, I think things like that it became a little easier in that way to find stuff.
And I want to ask, only because it's such a fun question.
Yeah.
What are the big mistakes that what do you see as like danger, Will Robinson, don't do this as you design?
As I design, for like what have been my mistakes, or what would I say
You are
don't? I don't make any
flawless.
mistakes.
No mistakes have been made. No, I mean to people who are in design, like what do you, when you observe it, like, ooh,
Yeah.
those are mistakes that
I
you
would
need
say
to be avoided.
proportion of furniture and scale is something that people don't really recognize or take enough into account. I feel like it's funny, you know, I started doing these called the expert calls. Are you on the expert? Yeah. So, you know, you get kind of all of these questions. It's, for anyone that doesn't know, it's like an hour that you speak to somebody about certain, you know, whatever it is that's on their agenda, really. But I find that people don't really know, like, the amount and proportion of things to put into their spaces. So they'll like buy a huge sofa for a small room, and then they're like, why is it off?
And they go too big.
And yes, or like too many things, and they can't figure, you know. So that I find is a big, and I also think just not understanding the flow of like how one room that's open to the next, you know, how you have to look at them all in tandem. You know, that seems to be a little bit of a thing people don't really register with.
Yeah, it's not Disney theme park.
Yeah. You have to, like, you know, have a common thread, and you know, I usually like to kind of have a couple colors that flow throughout, and you just change like hue and saturation, but you know, you're not like jumping around where they're not.
I feel that way more and more and more.
Yeah. So things like that you might not immediately kind of jump to, or those are pitfalls.
I feel like we've been talking for 10 minutes, but I feel like we've talked about everything. Has it been 10 minutes? What time is it? 5:51. It's been about 10 minutes. Oh gosh, I mean, really very articulate.
Yeah.
You just answered the questions.
Hold on. Questions?
Yes, let's have questions. I'm sure Dennis Scully would like to start questions because he's so good.
Oh, thank you so much. My goodness. Thank you. Hi. Yeah.
Make it count.
No, absolutely. I mean, in some ways, Alexa, following up on your question, I wonder, Nina, since there are a lot of students here, what you would tell them about some of the things you wish you had known when you were starting?
When I was starting, I think it's kind of scary coming out of design school and not really knowing the path, or maybe you have that dream role that you want to get, but it's not what you're going to do right off the bat. And I find that the most of the time that I get like emails from people that are right in or like just entering out of school, and they're like, I feel very frustrated because I don't know what to do, and how I love this, but like, where do I go with this, And I think that diving into all the resources that are at your fingertips, like right when I graduated, now people don't buy magazines as much, but I memorized all the sources, looked in the back, and just kind of, if I didn't know what something was, looked it up, found it, so that when I did get that job, I came to it with information, right? It wasn't just like because you don't learn a lot of that in design school. You learn how to do the job, but you don't learn about all the stuff that, your first day of work, they might be asking you all this stuff that had nothing to do with any of your classes, right? So I think if you can educate yourself, and you can just do that, even go to the library and look up, great designers from the past, and just like pour over their work in a way that you didn't for design school, not because it's a project, but because you're trying to like really understand the information, what was great about it, what are those sources that I want to find when I get that job that I want to land. So it might not happen, like my first job, I worked and I did restaurant design. I knew I wanted to do residential design, but I took the job because it was there, and it was something that I felt like, okay, this will set me on a path. Eventually I'll get to where I want to be. But it might not happen right away, but it will happen. And it did. You just have to really believe that it will, I think, and it does.
I actually think, having done commercial work, I think it is great.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the artwork.
Right.
There are a lot of things that come with the house, the accessories, the things that give flavor.
Right, and you don't have, and the budgets, I realized, get cut right away, and then all the stuff that you thought was making it in, you have to rely on other things, because it's not quite
that
the
makes
same
sense
world.
to me. With your silhouettes, they pack a lot of punch, and I wonder if
interesting. I never thought about that, but that could be. I feel like you have to sort of make some big moments and then kind of pull back a little. So that could be. Yeah,
that could be.
I like that.
Tom Kligerman wants to ask a question, right? Okay.
I actually have a question. So you mentioned that you always wanted to be in residential, but first part, did you always want to run your own firm? And second part, what has been the best and most rewarding part of running your own firm?
So yes, I always did want to run my own firm. I think there's some, you have all these, you visualize projects or whatever, and it's great to work. I think definitely out of school work for somebody else for sure. It gives you so much that you need to do that next step. But I just didn't, I wanted to have the kind of freedom to create what I wanted to create, and not through the eyes of the person that I was working for. So for me, the best part of running my own firm obviously projects take years, and it takes a while to see it to fruition. And then it's like your install day is so exciting, and hopefully it all works the way you plan it to be. And then you sit back and you're like, oh, I did this. This I didn't, sometimes it's like what you envisioned, and sometimes you're like, oh, maybe it's better than I envisioned. Or maybe it's like, I would have changed like this or that. But just kind of being able to like really own it and be proud of the work has been,
And you have to be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Because you have to please people.
You got it. Yes. Yeah. No, I've been really lucky in that I've had just a string of great clients who buy into the vision, and Yeah, that's helpful.
Tell him. 3 weeks elapsed.
So just as Dennis asked you, what would you say to the students? If you're in an interview for a job, you don't know if you have it. What do you tell potential clients? What are your sort of parting words? What are the things you do to sell you as a designer and your firm to do their project? What do you say to them? What do you say?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, so first I try to listen to what the goals of the project are, right? And usually I find that those are more like functional goals that people have thought of. And so I try to get a handle on what the project, what the architecture is given, or maybe it's new construction, or what the goal is, and then really sort of put it into visual words or sometimes even images, like, oh, I think, what you're really saying is X, and try to boil down to something that they don't even know that they are trying to articulate because they're not sure visually what that is. And I feel like if you can express that early on, they kind of are like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm buying what you're selling, kind of thing.
So I have another question, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So Alexa was mentioning earlier about being a people pleaser. And universally, every designer that I interview talks about this skill set of how do you really learn to draw people out and have them really open up to you about what they really need and how they really want to live. And how do you also learn to serve people? David Netta was talking recently about that was one of the biggest challenges for him to becoming an interior designer, was he felt so uncomfortable initially servicing people. Yeah. Initially, his friends, his social friends, but it was hard for him to come in the service entrance or to feel that he was in service of his clients. And I wonder how you learned that
well, I don't know, actually. This could have been something I actually did in school. I can't even remember. It goes so far back. But I think it was. We created a questionnaire to start off projects with, of all the stuff, like, how do they live? What are they drawn to? All the things that you're not really sure that you want to ask somebody in person, like, are there specific odd requirements? Does anyone have allergies? And like all the things that are boring and maybe not so boring. Favorite hotel? What are you drawn to? And I always have people start off with that. So then I can kind of say like, oh, that is sort of, they're really trying to get at this. And then, I do refer back to that a lot. And then I also try to remember, like, it is a service industry and people are paying for your time and attention, and like I make it my point to get back within a day, even if I don't know the answer, and just all the stuff that like people want to know that you're on top of it, and it is a service, and you got to kind of buy into that.
And I've known David my whole life, so I can say this. That's such a snobby thing to say. and I will tease him about this later. And I will tease him.
Yeah.
But like, it is with great pride that we do this, right?
Yes. And I think it's a privilege to be able to do that for somebody.
I'm so happy to know the elevator guys
Yeah.
at whatever. And like, I see them sometimes more than I see my kids.
Yes.
I love those guys. Like it's a total
It's a weird thing,
pride.
especially when you're doing it with friends, that like, it's a borderline type of, but no, I do feel like it's a privilege. And when you get to see their home in action, like you go over for a dinner party or whatever, you're like, oh, well, I did this. This is great, and I don't mind being on both sides of it, like Alexa said. I think
it's not, it's only bad if you think it's bad.
Right.
And I don't think it's bad.
Hi, I have a very practical question for both of you. We all know that increasingly furnishings show up at receiving warehouses with damages. However, it is very costly and time intensive to constantly go to the warehouse, have them pull stuff. They're not catching every little thing. I may have had this conversation with my warehouse yesterday.
Maybe.
It's possible. Maybe. I'm wondering how you both handle that so that things aren't showing up to project sites on installation day in a condition that they can't be repaired by your on-site team. Like, yeah, we can get scratches out of wood, but if, you know, velvet is discolored or rubbed the wrong way, like, it just needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
Sometimes projects take a long time for procurement and you leave a return window. Like, how are you ladies dealing with this?
So I think it's all, I mean, hopefully, you know, your receiver is great and they're doing, mine is, and they pick up like little tiny, you know, I got a lot of vintage furniture and there's usually a tiny scratch. And I'm like, well, that's okay. And your workrooms really have to let you know right away. You know, there's always the odd thing that's like, whose fault was this? Like, you know, it's a crushed velvet and it shipped that way and who's taking ownership and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes you just have to like, but I think it's about partnership and getting really great relationships with the people, with the vendors, the people doing the work, and, you know, people that will stand up and say, yeah, no, we need to replace this because.
And sometimes if there's a screw up, you just have to own it. And if you're speaking to your homeowner and they are relying on you and they're like, well, you see that this is dinged. You have to say, yeah, I do. And some people don't want you to fix it because they're like, I just bought this.
Yeah.
But if you're like, oh, well, no, it's okay, then the trust is gone. Then they're like, I don't trust you. You're just trying to sell me some ding piece of shit. And it can.
Yeah, you have to know beforehand. Right, exactly. That's
as much as you can, because sometimes to your point.
Yeah, sometimes it happens during install, and you just have to. Yeah.
Sometimes you're the person doing it on install. Sometimes you bump into a huge Trent iced coffee, and it spills on that white rug you just installed.
Hello. How do you present your vision to your clients? Are you using 3D renderings? Are you using mood boards? What do you?
Yeah, it's kind of, a lot of times it's renderings. Not always. They're you know, can be expensive and not every project really warrants them. Definitely not the time-consuming boards that you do at school where you're like hot gluing and pinning things up for hours and hours. Because, I mean, truly when you're doing the presentation, there could be like, you know, there's always a fabric or whatever that maybe the husband's like, I don't really love that floral, and you're like, that's out. You know, you got to be able to like really be very facile with ins and outs. So I try to spend a lot of time early on inspiration images, whether they're artwork or someone else's work or historic homes or anything that's going to show what that vision is, so that when you're boiling down to the stuff you're showing them, they already have a little bit of a vision in their mind. Because I find, you know, even sometimes renderings can be, it depends on the client, but if they're not, you know, people that can easily envision things, sometimes it's like if they're judging on what that wood tone in the render, you know, and it's not always, it's just an idea of what it might look like. So for the right client, they're great. Sometimes I find that they can also be like, no more renderings. Like, let's just visualize this because. And
to that point exactly, I think sometimes a pencil rendering is more effective because you're not committing
it
to
doesn't
a wood
seem
tone
so real
or a fabric. Yeah,
I think that's right. A little more latitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have one more.
We have a few more.
Hello. So I had one question about, I know you said you started with the ground up and you go from the carpet up, but what about with clients who have an existing piece? I know you can always reupholster, restain, or repaint, but what about, like, what are the objects you find difficult to work with, and how do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, generally, you know, if somebody has, if it's an heirloom or something, I love to work it in early. I want to know about it to start with so we can kind of plan where that's going to be. With upholstery, you know, people are usually up for reupholstering things and kind of work, so you're not as stuck into that. bit of it. But yeah, I do find, it depends how big that the project is, but it's always like people have a few things that they love, and you just, whether you love them or not, that's not really, you're not living there. So I have to kind of, remember, okay, this is something that means something to them, and we'll work it in, it'll be.
And if it really doesn't work, then you find a way to say something, but very delicately. Just like, I know I love this too, but I love that quilt thing that you've glued to your sideboard, or like a long dead person did. But I don't know if it's really part of what you're trying to do. So you kind of like hedge around it, and because they are relying on you to help them. But yeah, you can't just like can't
disregard it.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, a lot of times it's too like there's room, there's rooms in the basement, there's third floor rooms, say, like, there's all sorts of other.
But it doesn't work. Yeah. Like it's really, we're trying to force it, and it might
be better somewhere
mess up the whole your other goals.
Right. Definitely.
I feel like in historic homes, architectural context is really important. How do you approach homes where the period it was built or the style that it's in isn't really where your vision or the client's vision is going, and they're kind of a mismatch?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes if I don't see it and they love it and I don't, maybe it's a project that's not a great fit for us. So sometimes, that's just something I won't take that project. Other times, like in the book, I have a vineyard house that I did that literally had zero architectural redeeming quality, like zero. But it had a private beach, and it was, so many other things. And I had to think about, well, what can this become if I just have nothing to work with? And it was like, we did concrete painted floors and white walls and put in new beams that were reclaimed spruce wood, and really just turned something that literally like had nothing going for it into something, because you had to like add all that stuff. But if someone doesn't see that needs to be done, then sometimes it's not a good fit.
I think being positive about your projects is very helpful too. If you talk yourself into saying like, there's no way this can work, they're I mean, unless they're, to your point, like completely,
right, like
you shouldn't be working together. But like there was a time when everyone was complaining about how everybody wanted white rooms, and it's like, well, if there are that many beautiful white rooms out there, like we should be able to do a beautiful version of a white room. Like we can do this.
Yeah.
Like let's just make it beautiful.
Take it on as a challenge.
Yeah. Or call Tom Cleverman.
I think we have one last one right here.
Hello, I'm the one with the mouthy dog. Her name is Sister for the interior design history nerds, fellow interior design history nerds. So I'm asked a very practical question as well. Like the pillows there are absolutely beautiful, and throughout the projects I noticed you have beautiful pillows, and they're just beautifully chosen and sourced. With like fabric minimums and the cost to do that, I'm curious, like one, practically, how do you go about pillows? And it's probably towards the end of the project. And what is your philosophy around a decorative pillow?
That's a great question. It's actually for me like it's not the end, right? Because you might want to have this like solid sofa, but you have to show how it could be more than it is on its own. So I actually think about them early. And you're right, there are the minimums, and all this stuff. Sometimes I'll try to put in vintage pillows that are already, you're just buying what it is. But I find that usually clients understand that they kind of are an important element. It's not really like a afterthought, right? Like sometimes projects, if you take out all the pillows, it's really not much of anything. So they can be a big part of it, and I do it early on.
Totally. I agree 100%. I have a question.
Yeah.
When you said if your points of view are so disparate, that you don't take on the job? How do you not take on a job?
What do I say?
Uh-huh.
I just say, so I find that we land really well in this middle ground that I can't quite describe, but it's not contemporary and it's not traditional. And if people want ends of the spectrum, I just tell them there's someone else that can do it better, because there is somebody else that does that better. That's not really.
And they don't smack you in the face. And
no, generally I think that they're kind of thankful that might not have been, they might not see it, but yeah, I mean, because people do, if it's like you really want this stark modern look and you come to us for that, I don't think you're going to get what you want out of it, so yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. What do you do? What do you say?
I say, great, let's start tomorrow. No, that's not true. Well, sometimes it's true. It really depends on what you've got on your slate.
Yeah.
How much payroll.
Yeah. How many things, right.
It's really, I like so many different styles. It's really, I'm more scared of the mean people.
Yeah.
Than I am.
Can you suss that out early though? Yeah.
Because I want to like everybody.
Right.
And if they're gonna lie and seem nice, I'm buying it.
Yeah, you're in it.
Yeah, I'm like, you're amazing.
Right. Yeah, that's a hard one to figure out.
That's the scarier.
Yeah, I agree. No, I mean, nice clients and you can kind of.
I have a thing in my contract.
If I don't like you, then
that says we need to treat each other with respect.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know if it's fairly new.
Yeah,
but it says I require that we treat each other with mutual respect.
Right, that's important. Yeah.
Like you can yell at me, but you cannot yell at my staff. Because I'm used to my whole family. We all yell at each other all the time. Right.
You can.
No big deal.
Right. No, they have to treat you with respect. Yeah. No, I agree. I like that in the contract.
It's kind of crazy, right? Markham Roberts, who is a great friend, says people only treat you as badly as you allow them to.
Oh, that's good.
So
that's a good one. Yeah. Just
and that's not a typical thing.
Right.
But that's the big fear.
Yeah.
It's an unusual.
Right. You just don't know people that well on a first. Yeah. Great. Yeah. It can happen.
Thank you so much, Alexa and Nina. Everybody, join me in thanking them. And
thank you, nice.
We're gonna have you guys over at the table to sign some books. If you'd like to head over that way.
Thank you, NYSID.
Thanks, everybody.
Really, thank you so much.